Congressman Pete Sessions. He's chairman of the House Rules Committee. He represents the district in Texas that includes Texas Presbyterian. That's the hospital where Thomas Eric Duncan died and where 2 nurses contracted the virus. Congressman, great to see you this morning.
Good morning.
All right, when we last spoke, you thought the administration was not doing enough to combat Ebola. Since that time, a few things have happened. This weekend, the president named an Ebola czar or coordinator, Ron Klain. Are you encouraged by that?
I am. And I really am encouraged. We needed the President of the United States involved in this. I find it very interesting that the first meeting that was held, Mr. Klain did not even attend that, probably wasn't even invited, and that's disappointing. But the bottom line to this whole thing is that the government needs to take quick action. They need to deal with other countries well. And we only learned last week that, in fact, when this crisis was going on, the United States will not even provide Liberia with the name of the person who had Ebola so that they could do their own work. And that's the kind of really missteps in inaction we saw taking place, which is why I was asking for us to get a direct action out of the White House. It looks like that's happening.
And one of the other things that you had stated last week you were interested in was seeing the director of the CDC, Thomas Frieden, step down. How do you feel about that this week?
Well, I felt like when I saw the action that was taking place in Dallas, Texas, and the calls that were taking place, the director said that Ebola would be stopped in Dallas, Texas, and then we had people traveling throughout the country. We saw where they were unprepared with the kind of materials that people would wear, the covering, the protective gear. That was not in place. I saw things happening over and over where I did not see the CDC in charge, and that is why I made the statement that I did. The White House is obviously seeing the exact same thing, and I'm happy that we now have a director out of the White House.
So are you willing to give Thomas Frieden another chance this week, or has he blown it, given everything that you just enumerated?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I think he should have come to Dallas, Texas, and taken control of the circumstance and situation. Second of all, I think we were expecting him to make decisions that evidently the White House didn't want him to make, and that was dealing with the 13,000 visas that were issued from these 4 African countries. But he was providing the overall information to the president, indicating we did not need to stop air travel or this migration. Well, there was a report out last week saying Africa has made progress exactly because they have put these travel bans in place. It was the right thing to do. It still might be the right thing until this is stopped. And that now the White House will take personal responsibility for that instead of it being in the gap in between.
So it sounds like Tom Frieden can stay in his job now that some of this.
Well, I tell you what it sounds like. He's best suited. Evidently there at the CDC, but not in a policy advising position at all that I can see for the United States.
Okay, so Congressman, today, where are you on a travel ban?
Well, I believe that what we should do is rescind the 13,000 visas, meaning that people could not travel at this time. You know, when you go into a travel ban, everybody takes that to the unlikeliest connection of closing our borders. Even my mother screamed and yelled at me about that. I said, Mom, that's not what it's about. It's about controlling the spread of Ebola. And that takes place, I believe, by making sure that you have a ban in place from people. Keep them in the place where they are. Let's know what the incubation period is. Let's let the military response team work in Africa and in the United States. Then we're better prepared.
Dr. Fauci from the NIH talked about all of that this weekend and talked about how complicated it is to issue a travel ban, even just from passengers coming from those West African countries. Let me play for you what he said this weekend.
The fact is, it would be very, very difficult if you lost control of easily tracking people. You've got to look at the numbers to look about how many people are really trying to get into the country. You know, 36,000 people in 2 months went to airports to get out of those 3 countries. 77 were blocked because of a health issue. When they investigated them, none of them had Ebola. A lot of them had malaria. So there's not a lot of people trying to get into the country. So that's the thing that needs to be understood.
So, Congressman, he's throwing around a lot of numbers. Here are the numbers that we know. 150 people a day from West Africa do try to get into the United States. We crunched those numbers, and over the course of 2 months, that's 9,000 people. That's not insignificant. What should the U.S. do about them?
Well, the United States should make sure that what we're doing is isolating the people who can come, why they're coming, and who they are. And we need to know more about whether they live in the city, whether they live in places where this Ebola is taking place. But we can certainly protect the United States, and that's what this effort is about. It's about isolating there where it is, exactly what the African nations have said they have done to create a circumstance where it is not passed on. It has nothing to do other than with common sense. What we should do is restrict the amount of travel, visas that we have to American citizens travel back and forth, and the visas only to essential personnel that need to be back and forth.
Common
That's what
sense.
we should do.
That's always a good rule to go with. Congressman Pete Sessions, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet.
Great to see you.